Welcome to The Explainer. I'm so excited you're joining us today because we are about to embark on a truly fascinating chronological journey. We're going to unpack a narrative of profound human resilience, some deeply complex family dynamics, and the staggering, almost unbelievable weight of keeping a promise. Whether you're a longtime student of ancient texts or completely new to this material, the historical and emotional depth we're going to explore today is universally captivating. Okay, let's dive right in.
So, what would you actually be willing to trade for the one thing you want most in the entire world? Take a second to really think about that. It's a heavy concept, right? We all have desires, things we yearn for with every fiber of our being. But what happens when achieving that ultimate dream comes with an absolutely unimaginable condition? This is the central, deeply emotional stake of the narrative we're exploring today. It's a story about a woman who makes the ultimate bargain, and more importantly, what happens when it's time to pay up.
Section 1. A house divided by rivalry. The source text introduces us to a man from Mount Ephraim named Elkanah and his two wives. It's a pretty intense family dynamic. On one side, you've got Peninnah. She has children, but honestly she acts as a cruel, relentless adversary. On the other side is Hannah. She has no children, which, in this historical context, was a source of massive, deep grief. But she is deeply loved by Elkanah. In fact, every year during their pilgrimage to worship in Shiloh, Elkanah showed obvious favoritism, giving Hannah a worthy portion simply because he loved her. But you know, that just added fuel to the fire. Peninnah would relentlessly mock and torment Hannah year after year until Hannah was literally reduced to weeping and fasting.
Seeing her in this absolute state of distress, Elkanah asks her why she's crying and refusing to eat. And then he drops this question: "Am I not better to thee than 10 sons?" It's kind of a fascinating, if helpless, attempt by a well-meaning husband trying to comfort his wife. But he completely misses the mark on the specific, agonizing void she's feeling. His love was genuine, for sure, but it just couldn't erase her reality or the sting of her rival's mockery.
Moving to Section 2. A silent vow in Shiloh.
So, after eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah gets up. Now, she doesn't lash out at her rival, and she doesn't pick a fight with her husband. Instead, she takes this profound, desperate grief straight to the divine. The text describes her state as having bitterness of soul. She heads into the temple, just weeping heavily. And sitting right nearby, by a post of the temple, is Eli the priest. He ends up being an unwitting spectator to one of the most intensely private, fervent moments of prayer recorded in this text. In her absolute desperation, Hannah makes this staggering, massive sacrificial promise. She vows that if she's granted a male child, she won't keep him for herself. She says, "I will give him unto the Lord all the days of his life, and there shall no razor come upon his head." I mean, wow. This is a vow of lifelong dedication. That detail about no razor touching his head, that signifies a special, perpetual consecration. She is literally promising to give away the very thing she's begging to receive.
Section 3. The priest's drunken misunderstanding.
Okay, so the crucial thing here is Eli's perspective. He's watching Hannah, right? He sees her lips moving frantically, but she's speaking in her heart. She isn't making a single sound. Now, instead of recognizing this as deep, agonizing devotion, Eli completely misreads the situation. He assumes she's intoxicated, right there in the temple. He actually walks up and reprimands her, saying, "How long wilt thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee." It's such a fascinating moment of human error. You got a religious authority completely misinterpreting profound spiritual distress as public misbehavior. But Hannah, she doesn't crumble under this false accusation, not at all. She offers this incredibly dignified defense. She tells Eli, "No, my lord, I am a woman of a sorrowful spirit," basically explaining she hasn't touched a drop of wine, she's just pouring out her soul. And she specifically asks him not to view her as a daughter of Belial. Now, in this context, that is a really harsh term for a wicked, worthless, or troublemaking person. That shows you just how deeply insulted she was by his assumption. Yet she handles it with such amazing grace, explaining that her silent display was simply born out of the sheer abundance of her grief and complaint. Hearing this elegant, really heartbreaking defense, Eli immediately realizes he messed up. The conflict resolves when he offers her a blessing. "Go in peace, and the God of Israel grant thee thy petition." And what's really amazing is the immediate psychological shift this interaction provides. The text notes Hannah says, "Let thine handmaid find grace in thy sight," and then she just goes on her way. She finally eats, and her countenance, her face, was no longer sad. It's like the crushing weight of her grief was just left right there at the temple.
Which brings us to Section 4.
The birth of Samuel. Let's trace out this timeline. First, they rise early, worship, and head back home to Ramah. Some time passes, and God actually answers her plea. The text says the Lord remembered her, and she conceives. This leads to the incredibly joyous birth of the son she had so desperately pleaded for. But I want you to notice the crucial weaning period that follows. Hannah is actively preparing herself for the ultimate fulfillment of her vow, using this window of time to nurture and raise her son before eventually making that trip back to Shiloh.
She names him Samuel, and the reasoning is explicitly stated right there in the text, because I have asked him of the Lord. Literally every single time she called his name, it was a reminder of her desperate prayer and the divine answer she received. Now, because of the sheer weight of her vow, when Elkanah heads up for the yearly sacrifice, Hannah actually chooses to stay behind. She tells her husband she won't go up until the child is completely weaned, and then she'll bring him to abide before the Lord forever. Elkanah fully supports her, telling her to do what seems good and just wait.
Finally, Section 5, Fulfilling the Sacred Promise.
So when the boy is finally weaned, and keep in mind he's still a very young child here, Hannah begins that journey back to the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And she certainly doesn't go empty-handed. She brings some very specific, heavy physical offerings: 3 bullocks, 1 ephah of flour, and a bottle of wine. I mean, this isn't just a casual drop-in visit. This is a highly formal, incredibly significant religious sacrifice. These elements visually represent the true gravity and the immense cost of this moment. They slay a bullock, and they finally bring the young child to Eli.
Just imagine this incredibly poignant reunion. She brings this young boy to the exact same priest who once accused her of being drunk. She reminds him, saying, "O my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here, praying unto the Lord." She is faithfully connecting her current overflowing joy directly back to her past crushing sorrow. She completely acknowledges that this very child standing right in front of them is the petition she had asked for, the very one Eli himself had blessed.
And then we witness this truly breathtaking follow-through. She says, "Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord." Consistent with that sacred oath she made in the absolute depths of her despair, she surrenders her long-awaited son to live a life consecrated to the Lord. It's a pure act of gratitude. Guys, it is an almost unimaginable level of devotion, getting exactly what you prayed for only to immediately give it back out of faithfulness to your word. The text finishes this sequence by simply noting that he worshiped the Lord right there.
Which brings us right back to where we started, but now with the full, heavy context of Hannah's journey. Would you give up your greatest wish once it finally came true? Hannah's story isn't just some ancient historical record. It's a profound mirror held up to our own integrity. It really challenges us to think about the immense weight of a promise, the true nature of gratitude, and what it actually means to honor a commitment when the cost is literally everything you ever wanted. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this explainer today. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.